Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Aluchi from the Coffee Cauldron, and today we will be doing something different. I'm going to tell you a story, and this story is about intuition and how it is a curious feeling that when we don't follow it can land us in messes that we can't even begin to fathom. So, sometime mid February of last year, 2024, I went on a trip where I drove through the Adirondacks. Lake Placid was the final leg of my trip, and I was so excited to stay in this aesthetically pleasing outdoor cabin that I had seen on Instagram. Okay? So I get there and check in, but I had to leave right after because I had a beer tasting experience and a carriage ride to get to. The cabin was freezing when I walked in, and I'm African, and I think anything under 75 degrees is bothering on cold. So I thought it was just me overreacting. Because someone that loves the cold weather would just describe it as cold. But now looking back, I feel like the heat from the sun contributed to covering up the problem, right? So immediately I walked into that cabin, I got a feeling to request another cabin, that this cabin was never going to heat up. But I thought it was just me overreacting, so I brushed it aside because I was so excited to stay there. Also, the gentleman from the front desk who showed me around the cabin, he assuaged my doubt. He said, "You know, I'm going to raise the temperature and everything will heat up by the time you get back." Hmm. When I got back, the sun was down and this cabin was still freezing. It was even colder than I remembered, right? I got the feeling again to request another room because that guy was still around. But I was so tired and all I wanted to do was shower and sleep. So I adjusted the temperature again, I set it to the max, and the shower was hot, thankfully. So I thought the room would heat up because the shower was hot. So I went into the shower, took a shower, and then when I got out of the shower and changed into my pajamas, I started getting that feeling again. So I called the front desk and he came in and adjusted the temperature again, assuring me that it will heat up soon. Well, it did not heat up, but I had the option of going to the lounge to warm up while I waited for the cabin to heat up. I did not want to do that because I was already in my pajamas. I was already sitting in that little warm spot on my bed that, when you sit on your bed and your body warms up that spot and you just crawl into that spot. Yes, I was already sitting there. I was so tired. I did not want to step out and it was cold outside. So I didn't even want to have that 1 minute of cold until I went into the lounge. I just wanted to be in my room and let it heat up. So I set my alarm for 1 hour. Once that hour was up, I was going to leave that room if it did not heat up. But I secretly hoped that that room would heat up because I was tired and I did not want to pack up everything again and leave. So I bundled up, I brought out more like my coat and I wore it and I sat in that little warm spot. And then I also got out the blow dryer, plugged it in, and held it on high heat for my coat legs. God, oh, it's so embarrassing what I did that night. All the while, that feeling was still there saying, "Hey, hey, get another room, get another room." But it was like a nagging feeling. But I ignored it. In fact, at this point, it was my will against it. And I was hoping that I would win. An hour came and went, and it was still freezing in there. At this point, I was so annoyed and I was so mad at myself. I called the front desk again to finally request a new room, only to get a voicemail. Turns out the management for the cabin was not 247 on site, and he already left for the night. He did not tell me that they were not 247 on site, but when I came in, I got a welcome packet, and it wasn't that welcome packet, but I was hurriedly, I was hurrying to leave for my event, so I did not read that welcome packet. Well, I was so angry, so I left an angry voicemail requesting a refund. Then I packed my things and went to a hotel a couple blocks away. I packed everything. I was in my pajamas, I was wearing my coat, everything I took out. I already made myself at home in that cabin. So everything I took out, the clothes I took out and hung, I had to take them out again and repack them into my suitcase. I was so angry. I walked to my car, got into my car and then went to another hotel that was a couple blocks away. And I was so annoyed. Like and I thought I was catching a cold too, because I just felt so tired. Um, Even when I got to the hotel, of course, I had to pay an exorbitant fee. It wasn't like really big, but it was more expensive than what you would get if you booked ahead of time. So the next day, he replied, apologizing and letting me know that some parts in that heater was broken, unbeknownst to him. He said it was common for their cabins to be cold when there was no one occupying it, and because it worked fine a couple days ago, when someone else was in there, he did not think there was a problem at first. He refunded me my money and everything else was good, except I still remember that feeling from time to time. And whenever I remember it, I laugh at myself. But I'm also thankful. I am thankful that nothing really bad happened that night. I was able to find something else and resituate myself for that night. But I was also thankful that I was not in college when it happened. In college, I was making minimum wage and I was on a super strict travel budget. So at that time, any monetary inconvenience that required only money and could not be solved through um, wit or partnership meant the end of that plan. So who knows? Maybe I could have slept in my car and worried about carbon monoxide poisoning the whole night because it snowed a little that night. Or I would have slept in the lounge and worried about my safety the whole night because the door to the lounge was unlocked and there was no security on site. And this is northern New York. That was my first time in northern New York. So I am that experience, it just made me try my best to listen to my intuition and try to trust it more. Even though sometimes I can come up with an excuse, or sometimes I can let the rational part of my brain take over. But anytime I get that feeling, I always remember this experience. And then sometimes too, I start thinking, what could I have done if I was not in a place where I was financially able to move to another place? But then I'd say, okay, let me not dwell on this feeling. But I am thankful that I had the means to switch to another hotel and I made it out mostly safe, even though I had a minor cold. The next day I couldn't get out of bed. I was so cold. I was so tired. Not cold as in feeling cold, but I had a cold. My head was ringing and I stayed in bed the whole day. That was how bad it was. But I was still very thankful that I made it out of that experience intact. So, yes, please, please trust your intuition, people. And this story is actually published on my website, thecovycauldron.com, and it is part of the magazine, the Autumn Breeze issue of the Covey Cauldron magazine. So you can always go there and read it. And you can also go there and see what I think about trusting your intuition. How, when you get that voice, that nudge from your gut, how you can start practicing to follow it. Because I have an article there that goes into a little bit more detail. The article is preceding the story time, but it went into more details of things you can do to follow your intuition more. I am not perfect at this. This is something I am still learning as I'm going. But that experience taught me a lesson. It really did.